You are listening to the audio portion of the QB Power Hour webinar series. The QB Power Hour is a free bi-weekly webinar series for accounting professionals presented by Michelle Long and Dan DeLong, who are very passionate about the industry, QuickBooks, and apps that integrate with QuickBooks. You can find out all the details about the webinar series at qbpowerhour.com. So without further ado, here's Michelle and Dan. Welcome everybody to another QuickBooks Power Hour. Today we do these every once in a while where we do some hot topics from the QuickBooks Power users Facebook group. What we do is we kind of comb through a couple of the recent posts that might have some good impact that we want to make sure that we kind of unpack some of these things. Last time we kind of called it Stump the Chump. If you have a particular question that's just kind of burning, you can put those in the Q&A as we go through this hour. But we do have quite a few things to kind of unpack here through the most recent weeks here. So Michelle.
Hi, everybody. Michelle Long, CPA with an MBA in entrepreneurship, author of several different books. You can check those out on Amazon, and there you find the links to the Facebook group that Dan's referring to. If you haven't joined it yet, please do. Very active group. Love to see you out there. Go ahead, Dan.
All right. My name is Dan DeLong, owner at DanWit. Worked at Intuit for nearly 18 years. Co-hosting today, as well as over at Workshop Wednesdays at the Schoolofbookkeeping.com as the chief content creator there as well. It's a little bit of the details about the QB Power Hour if you're just joining us. It's every other Tuesday, currently unavailable for CPE credit. But if you need CPE credit, you're probably not joining us today because the tax deadline is tomorrow for business returns. But check out the website for upcoming events that we have. As far as topics are concerned, we are going to have at the end of April. We're hoping to have Intuit come on to talk about the commerce tab. That we did kind of mention that a couple webinars ago, and they're actually going to come on and talk about some of the things that are coming, nearly coming, and future state of what you should expect to see in the commerce tab. So look forward to that. And then we have some housekeeping. So if you have any direct questions about what it is that we're talking about today, please put those in the Q&A because it allows us to follow up with that if it is something that we can't answer live. If you have just general comments about how you feel about daylight savings time or losing your luggage or anything like that, welcome to put those in the chat. That's more of a conversational type of thing. But if you have specific questions that you want Michelle or I to answer today, please put them in the Q&A, and then of course we have the links there for the handouts as well. You can always go to qbpowerhour.com/resources and there's a link there to download the handouts on our website directly. So some of the things that we're going to kind of pass through or talk about or unpack today. We want to talk about the changes with QuickBooks Point of Sale. Unfortunately, it's end of life, so we kind of want to talk about what that means to those customers that might be impacted into its direction or partnership with Shopify Point of Sale. We'll kind of unpack a little bit about that, and then since that is discontinuing, I want to reiterate. The service discontinuation policy that they have in QuickBooks 2020 Desktop is currently on its on that track of service discontinuation, and everybody's talking about ChatGPT. So we want to talk about AI in accounting and kind of take our take on it. And if you are under a rock or in Buenos Aires. Over this weekend, you may have missed that there was a small bank collapse this weekend, and we kind of want to talk a little bit about that because there is a lot of information, and we want to kind of unpack and direct attention to where might be a good resource for you as accounting professionals. And then we had some posts that we want to talk about and highlight There's a client disconnection. Then we had a post about deleting transactions through SASANT, closing date challenges and things of that nature. And we want to throw a little bit about there's some terms, factoring, retainage, and retainers, and we want to kind of set those lanes as far as what that actually is, because there was a post about that. And then always, it seems like every month there's something about unapplied cash payment. So it stands to help that we kind of unpack that as well. And yes, Michael also correctly pointed out that it wasn't just Silicon Valley Bank; it was Signature Bank as well. Also had some issues. So first thing is QuickBooks Point of Sale. So when I worked at Intuit in 2002, they launched a small product all called QuickBooks Point of Sale, which was focused on the retail industry, and it's a separate desktop software that integrated with QuickBooks Desktop, because at that time that was the platform to use. And I was one of the first 14 people to learn about and support that program at Intuit, and was with that organization for probably about 7 years at Intuit. I learned so much about business acumen, right? Because this is one of those things. Retail is one of those things that you kind of have to know inventory and those concerns that businesses have about stock levels, because if you have something out of stock, well, you can't sell it, right? And those types of things, and sales tax and those, that's very important to a retail business. Charging credit cards, a lot of things that a lot of accountants and bookkeepers tend to run screaming from the hills. It's like, I'm not going to deal with a company that's got the inventory issues, but those things were currently at the forefront of those types of businesses. Well, it's kind of ebbed and flowed about QuickBooks Point of Sale, because one of the things that is challenging about that software is that it was a desktop software, and it required a Windows-based operating system in order to install it. And as the evolution of retail has happened from 2002 to today, you go into small cafes and boutiques and things like that. A big clunky computer that's running a cash register just wasn't in the feng shui of setting up a retail establishment. So Intuit had I think about 8 years ago, they had partnered with Revel. Revel Point of Sale is really kind of focused on restaurants, and that was kind of their niche. So they partnered with Revel. Thing about Revel is it sent information to QuickBooks Online, which was, of course, in line with their strategies, and that didn't go well, right? that partnership did not go well for a couple of years, but during that time, QuickBooks Point of Sale was not being actively developed, right? So it kind of has a similar track as QuickBooks Pro for Mac, right? There was times where Intuit was not actively or as aggressively developing that software. And what ends up happening in that particular instance is that technology changes during that period of a hiatus. So then it becomes a catch-up challenge, right? Like, what do we do, right? To how do we catch up with the times? And what happened during that period with Revel is the look and feel of QuickBooks Point of Sale just didn't look modern enough. So they ended up slapping a new user interface over top of QuickBooks Point of Sale, but still the core features and functionality was still based off of what it was prior to that. Well, that meant that was an inconsistent experience between the new user interface and the old feature functionality. And as time went on, and there's still in that particular situation where you have to have a Windows-based operating system in order to install it on. It's only going to synchronize to QuickBooks Desktop, which that is the feature functionality of the financial exchange that really separated QuickBooks Point of Sale from the other point of sale players that were out there. How you could, the flexibility that you had with sending data from your point of sale software into QuickBooks Financial. And so that ultimately ended up with, you were kind of stuck with, well, if you wanted to have a tablet-based point of sale system like, the Squares of the world or the Clovers of the world or the other players that were out there, you would have to get a Surface, right? Like a Microsoft Surface was really the only tablet-based type of thing that you could have QuickBooks Point of Sale on and have that experience. Well, that's just a little limiting, right? And then you still have the same issues that you have with a desktop, desktop software. So all of that to say is that QuickBooks or Intuit has made the difficult decision to end selling and servicing QuickBooks Point of Sale. So the dates, just so that you're aware, is February 7th, which is already in the past. They are no longer actively selling QuickBooks Point of Sale. So you can't even buy a new software license. Now, if you have an existing client who's currently using QuickBooks Point of Sale and they want to add a seat or unlock from basic to pro, they can still do that during this period of time. But if they need a new license, they're not selling new software licenses of QuickBooks Point of Sale. On October 3rd of this year, so that's about 8 months, between those two dates, will be the service discontinuation, and then we will currently, we'll kind of unpack, service discontinuation, but really, what does that mean on October 3rd? I put the wrong date there. It's a part of the challenge there. Point of Sale is actually going to still open, on that day of October 4th, right? It's not going to cease to work when they go to open QuickBooks Point of Sale. What will happen is that online services that are connected to QuickBooks Point of Sale will stop working, right? So if they're using integrated QuickBooks payments, then it will stop. It won't be able to charge a credit card. If they're using multi-store with multiple locations, the online store exchange method will cease to work. There are 4 other store exchange methods that will still continue to work, right? So they can send through email, or they can send a file, those types of things. It's the online store exchange, any online connected services. So if you want to put in the bucket, it does this need the internet in order to continue to do it directly, then that's going to cease to work. So they won't have live support. There won't be product updates. So if you are integrating, QuickBooks payments into the point of sale, which is definitely a time savers, because there's no product updates going to be created, that could be a security issue, right? So you might, because payment card industry standards are constantly changing. So if you're not getting the payment updates, product updates, then of course there could be a security risk of continuing to use. Now, if you find another payment processor and process your credit card payments outside of that, that's totally fine. However, any prior transactions that were processed and stored within QuickBooks Point of Sale that were credit card related, that that's still there, right? So there still is the issue for that. Now they did with the point of sale version 19. There was an integration with Webgility, to be able to synchronize your inventory levels across your online sales channel, so that Webgility sync will no longer work on October 4th, as well as the Go Payment synchronization. So you could basically use a Go Payment app and do inventory synchronization for like trade shows and things like that. So those are the things that are discontinuing. We do have the Intuit FAQs link there, as well as a blog article and workshop that I did with Carrie Kahn as well there. So those links there kind of talk a little bit more about this our insight into what this is happening. So the next, go ahead.
And Dan, Mandy wants to know if the QB point of sale users have been notified already about this change.
Yeah, the customer communication has already started to go out to customers. That happened, I think, on the 19th of February. To their credit, right? So to Intuit's credit, Intuit is partnering with Shopify, and I've had some meetings with the folks over at Shopify Point of Sale, and they have actually, which is kind of new new experience for me. They've actually learned from their mistakes, which usually when they make changes, there's been so much turnover. That's that the new people try the same things that the last people tried, right? So they've done this before, where they've partnered with another point of sale provider, with Revel, and they've taken those learnings to Shopify. Like when I had some meetings with the folks over at Shopify, they were like, this is all the things we did with Revel, and you're not going to do. Right. So they did really learn from their mistakes, kind of gave them their marching orders. But Intuit was handling the all of the communication. So they, Shopify, to their, of course that challenge is a little bit, they had to wait until Intuit was actually ready to communicate that message to customers and other people that were affected as well. So they were playing a lot of hurry up and wait, which once that communication went out, then it was okay. Cat's out of the bag. Let's move forward, right? So one of the reasons why this does make sense is there has really been little to no updates since version 10, which was about 10 years ago. So QuickBooks Point of Sale itself has been kind of just sitting there, right? I mean, it was very feature robust. It was a robust point of sale software at the time. It's just kind of technology has been a little bit more lean since then. Of course, cloud-based has entered into the mix. And then, of course, that tablet-based point of sale was really limited to the Windows Surface. Shopify is a cloud-based offering, right? So limited, and then a limited disruption, right? So, you look at other point of sale softwares, there's very little that will still integrate with QuickBooks Desktop. That was one of the learnings that they learned from the last partnership with Revel, is that, okay, well, let's let this, if they still want to be on QuickBooks Desktop, they still can be, right? Because you upheave their point of sale, upheaving their financial or their back office. On top of that, that's just a lot of change, all at once. So QuickBooks point of sale, Shopify point of sale will still continue to synchronize with QuickBooks Desktop. So they don't have to update their QuickBooks and their point of sale at the same time. And then, of course, the recognition that Shopify point of sale is well well type of receipt. All right, so what are the details? All right, so there's a lot of because of the communication of this point of sale was hinging on Intuit. There was a lot of things that we didn't know until that communication happened. So the monthly cost, that's one of the things that is going to be a challenge for customers, because they paid for a software license for QuickBooks point of sale, and now they're transitioning to a monthly cost for Shopify point of sale. Intuit is offering a first year discount of 50%, or they're making Shopify rather give a 50% discount for that first year. And it's per location. So if they have 20 locations, then, you can kind of do the math there. We're all accountants and bookkeepers, right? The app to Shopify e-commerce is required, right? In order to add on Shopify point of sale, it's not just a standalone system. You have to have Shopify e-commerce, and then you add on the point of sale to that. The desktop integration is detailed transactions for now. So the option of doing daily sales summaries into your QuickBooks desktop is currently not the desktop integration. The migration tool that QuickBooks or Intuit is having Shopify make available will only move lists. So your sales history is not going to come along for the ride. And these dates keep changing. Originally it was September 30th, but that was on a weekend or something like that. So they had to change some of the dates. And then another thing to consider is that existing hardware is likely not compatible. So, that investment of hardware like receipt printers, cash drawers, you want to make sure that hardware is compatible. They're using a compatible hardware bundle, because that's another thing to consider. So that's a lot to unpack about QuickBooks point of sale. Did I miss anything, Michelle? Anybody have a question that you noticed there through the chat? Or
No, just it seems like, a couple of people were asking, if Shopify is going to take over QuickBooks point of sale, and it's more replacing QuickBooks point of sale. That point of sale will no longer be available. And I was just getting ready to type in a note there. If you all have any clients or know anybody that's using point of sale, be proactive and reach out to them now, that you may need to be making a transition to the new one, because all those online connected services, as Dan mentioned, will be ceasing to work come October. So this is an opportunity for you to be proactive and reach out to those clients, because a lot of times the clients may be getting those communications and those emails, but they may not be paying attention to it. And they may not realize the ramifications of what Dan was just saying about what will quit working and how it's going to impact them. So this is your opportunity to reach out to those clients and be proactive about what they need to change.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And and just because there's a preferred method doesn't mean that is the best method for the customer, right? So this may be a trigger event to really look at, okay, well, maybe I do want to go completely cloud-based with my retail establishment. So that's just one of those things to just be aware of that's happening. And in conjunction with that, of course, every year there is a service discontinuation on a QuickBooks desktop product. And this is, this combined with the QuickBooks point of sale news, every year, this starts desktop's going away, right? But this is service discontinuation, right? So, and this happens every year. The QuickBooks or Intuit's policy is the most recent version as far as support and online services that work with the desktop product, plus 2 years prior, right? And so the life cycle or the release cycle of QuickBooks Desktop is typically in the fall. So they don't automatically peel off the oldest version right when they have that. They typically have a grace period. and that's 2020. We're in the 2020 grace period, right? So 2023 was released in the fall of 2022, and so they time this until after the tax deadline, right? So if you're on 2020, you can make it to the end of taxes of May 31st. That's when that version will kind of peel off, right? And again, it's online services that are discontinued. So it's all payroll services, including workforce and QB time, credit card processing, the accountant's copy transfer service. Doesn't mean that you can't still send your accountant copy through a file. You just can't send it through the online connected accountant's copy transfer service. Contributed reports, again, it's an online thing. And then multi-currency exchange rates. Again, you're downloading something into QuickBooks. That is not something that will continue to work after that service discontinuation. And then online banking, even Web Connect files that you download directly from the bank. You know, you're thinking that, okay, this is not an online direct connection in QuickBooks, but as soon as you try to import that Web Connect file, it has to go out on the internet to verify that Web Connect file and that financial institution is legitimate, and so that piece will not work either. So direct connections or Web Connect with QuickBooks 2020. Now,
okay, Dan,
it does happen. Well, go ahead. No.
What about what about a journal entry import? Will that still be available?
That still, I think that still works, because I've seen journal entries actually work across versions, right? Like you can export a journal entry out of 2021 and bring it into 2020, or vice versa, right? Like you export out a journal entry file out of 2020 and bring it into a later version. So I don't see that being anything that's stopping there. It doesn't need a desktop or an online connection in order to do that. But
okay,
what is interesting? Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, Donna said specifically the accountant's import journal entry file.
Yep. Yeah, the QBJ file. I think that's what she's referring to.
Yeah,
that is something that you should be able to use regardless. I'd have to actually test it to be sure. But
right.
I have not heard anything. I mean, there's links to the discontinuation policy, and I did not see anything mentioned about the journal entry import process.
Okay.
on the
another thing. Okay, another thing to clarify: when you say QB Desktop, that's all QB Desktop, including QB Accountant, including Enterprise, including Mac, all desktop products, correct?
Yeah. Yep. Anything that's version 2020 year, right? Let's see. I think we're in version 32 of actually or is it 33?
Releases,
I'm not sure.
Of the release updates on that.
Yeah.
Okay. And then Michael says, I have one client on Desktop Pro 2020. We're changing payroll to Patriot, and they're not wanting to change desktop versions. Since payroll was the only online add-on, should QuickBooks 2020 continue to work?
Not being intimate with Patriot Payroll, I'm not sure of the way that it gets data into QuickBooks. If it's using a Web Connect, QuickBooks Web Connector, that is not an online service, right? So you're able to, if they're creating a file, and you're using the QuickBooks Web Connector, that will continue to work. If they're using an IIF, which is a file that is Intuit interchange format is what it actually stands for, but typically that was the old way of getting data from third-party applications into QuickBooks, like ADP, for example. They create an IIF file that will continue to work. Yeah.
Okay, and that's what Michael says they use. The one thing I would be concerned about, Patriot was using that SVB, the Silicon Valley Bank that we just were talking about. So based on that alone, you might want to reconsider. We'll talk about the whole issue.
Yeah, that'll be the next slide.
Yeah. Yes. Okay, go
Now,
ahead.
the interesting thing about this, and I think so I saw something float through in the chat. This is the last version. 2020 was the last version that was non-subscription based, right? So as this discontinues, right, that means that every other user of QuickBooks Desktop is on some kind of subscription, right? Whether they're still using QuickBooks 2021 or not, they are on the Plus subscription model, right, for desktop, which means that they have access to 2023 and 2024 when it comes out, and so on and so forth. So I am interested to see what happens next year. With what is their discontinuation policy? Is it just they peel off the oldest version as far as support is concerned, or right, like as we're all thinking the sky is falling, what is going to happen next year with desktop? Because now that everyone's on a subscription model, what does that mean for the subscription next year when it comes to service discontinuation? Now, you talk to anybody at Intuit, and they're always like, desktop's not going away. And as long as there's a hard drive, there's a place for desktop. And there is always a core allegiance to desktop QuickBooks, right? So there still is a place for QuickBooks Desktop in the world, right? So, and as long as they see a market for that, then of course they're still gonna make it available. But an interesting thing about the if I actually clicked on the discontinuation policy here, and it finally shows up. Right.
Several people are actually saying 2021 was the last year before subscription, as opposed to 2020, just for clarification. So 2020 or 2021?
2021 for accountant version. Other, I'll have to double check, but I believe it's.
And now somebody
plus.
Says they have 2022 and it's not subscription based. So they still say there's some non-subscription based available.
End users should be all on a subscription.
Yeah.
By now. So you may, as an accountant, may be able to buy a standalone accountant version.
Yeah.
Which that was the last version.
Yeah. That's where the confusion's coming from, is accountant version versus end users. Yeah.
Yeah. But you look at the service discontinuation policy, there is very little mention of, just upgrade to the latest version of QuickBooks to maintain these things. It's more of, move to QuickBooks Online, right? So that is clearly their intention, right? Move to QuickBooks Online. That's not a surprise, but typically in prior service discontinuations, there was at least an honorable mention of going to the next version of QuickBooks Desktop. Now it's not even mentioned, so just bear that in mind. All right, so we want to talk a little bit about AI in accounting, right? So the last couple of months, ChatGPT has been all of the buzz. I think the statistic was, in a week, they went from 0 to 1 million users or something that's incredible like that. And we want to draw a little distinction between machine learning versus AI, right? So, the bank feeds is more of a machine learning, right? So as you use something, then then QuickBooks starts to get the idea. Like every time you go to Home Depot, you always code it to jobs and supplies. Well, I'll do that kind of next time, right? Well, AI is a little bit more, more than that, right? Obviously, it uses machine learning to get to a certain point, but if you listen to the Cloud Accounting podcast on this, today, right? It wasn't very, if you ask ChatGPT, where should I put this on my chart of accounts, you get a very generic answer, and as it's more of you almost get the same answer if you ask it different things for different different circumstances. If I bought a business, what is goodwill, and can I put that on the books? It's typically the same type of response that you end up getting. So talk to your accountant. It's not a replacement for humans, right? So it's an enhancement, right? And for one of the things that I've been seeing is that it's been very useful is more of a creative thing, and or in communications, right? So as far as like writing a blog article or a YouTube description or communicating with a client.
Firing a client. How do I fire a client? I heard somebody did use Chat GPT to help come up with a letter to fire a client.
Yeah, exactly.
Or wording for your blog, like you mentioned. Yeah,
exactly. And you can go in and have it reword, right? Like you can give it coaching. And I saw one thing on the news. They actually, a college professor fed it answers or asked it questions on the MBA exam, and it actually passed. It passed the MBA exam, based on his interaction with it. It didn't, some answers wasn't exactly, the way that you wanted it, that he was looking for, but he was able to formulate those things and kind of give it some coaching, and it actually would reword the response in a way that he was that the professor was actually looking for. So it actually is I think it's a tool and a tool to use. I'm always a little skeptical of when you don't pay for something, you're typically the product, right? So especially at first, then when it was totally free, but I see now there's a Chat GPT Plus, which is a subscription based type of thing. So it is something to just be aware of, and it does have a place, but I don't think yet it's not going to replace accountants and bookkeepers. Your thoughts, Michelle? Have you played around with it at all? Or?
I have played around with it quite a bit, and I think it is very helpful, like you said, on some of the soft skills side. And I think it could be helpful for clients. What is my net income? What is my gross profit margin? What does this mean? How could I improve my gross profit margin? I think it could help for some of those types of things. But as far as the doing accounting or things like that, it doesn't do that. Like you said, the machine learning can help with some of that stuff, but Chat GPT can help us in responding to some client inquiries, or like you said, writing some of the client letters or client communications. Or, I heard somebody said, how would you write a description of our firm or the about us or what we do? And it was kind of terrible because it was traditional. We offer accounting, tax, and bookkeeping. I mean, it wasn't really that great.
Yeah.
But for doing some marketing copy or some, blog posts or some things like that, I mean, it can really do some great things. And I've used it for some stuff, when I was researching some stuff on pricing, subscription pricing, some things like that. It can give you some great ideas and great starting point. But then you do some modifications to it and stuff. It is really incredible as far as giving you a starting point and things.
Yes, and Becca just asked a question. What about Excel how-to questions? I have used it for a lot of that. How to do this in Google Sheets or Excel when I don't know the formula to start with. It has been because Googling those things, you end up with all of these blog articles that with ads and stuff like that. So having an ad-free, distraction-free resource for those types of things is pretty phenomenal. And it saved my behind a couple times with things that is really out of my scope of knowledge with regards to spreadsheets. So that is a great way to utilize Chat GPT as well.
If you haven't checked it out yet, just go play with it. Go check it out. Mm-hmm. And type in what's the difference between a CPA or an EA, or type in there, help me write a letter to fire my client as an accounting professional, or help me fire my tax client, or go in there and
or a
just type some
proposal,
things
right? Like,
in. Yeah.
things like that of engagement letters and those types of things are great resource for that.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Check it out and play with it.
All right. So Silicon Valley Bank and now Signature Bank, what we know, right? On Friday, the federal government, the FDIC, took control of the bank. They dissolved it and transitioned it to another bank, and it was the 16th largest bank at the time. And being that it's situated in Silicon Valley, a lot of venture capitalist funding were customers of that bank. So in the heart of technology, we have basically a bank that is in a matter of days went away. So that had a lot of money movement challenges on Friday, which was typically a payday for a lot of people. So payroll, direct deposits weren't deposited, bill payments, one of the largest AP automations, Bill.com and Corpay and Melio all had connections to that bank, and things that were supposed to happen were either delayed or just didn't happen on that day. Well, we don't know. We don't know who all was impacted, how it happened, who's to blame. That's all going to kind of sort out in the laundries, so to speak. What will happen to other apps and any other ripple effects? Michelle, you were able to kind of ascertain any takeaways on what you saw over the weekend?
Well, yeah, I was interested in this, and once we got the internet, I started listening to this and looking at this, and I was following some of David Leary's posts on Twitter and some of the comments there, and actually the Cloud Accounting podcast. I was listening to some of that from David Blake and their guests and stuff like that, and I encourage you all to listen to it because they did have some good comments and good suggestions and good takeaways and things like that. And Donna was just posting here, and somebody else did too, about Patriot, and that Patriot now has said, hey, everything's great, and that they've been working with people, and that they were very responsive and stuff. And I saw a lot of apps as well, like Melio and Ripple and Licio and Bill, and all these other apps were posting, we're not impacted, our payments were not affected, or this, that, and the other. And but initially, Patriot was quiet for a while. In the initial part of this, when payroll was supposed to be processed, and I did see a tax EA, I don't remember who the person was, had posted on Twitter that said, hey, our client's payroll, we don't know what happened. The client is asking me, am I bonded? Do I have insurance? Because I'm the one that's responsible. And, the payroll went. And what happened was they were using SVB Bank, and the payroll funds were swept. And now all of a sudden, everything's frozen. And the client's saying, what's going to happen to the paycheck? Our employees are expecting their paychecks and the funds are all frozen. What's happening? And you, Dan, are the accountant who's responsible. And I am, of course, Dan, I'm just using you as the example. And the client and the accountant.
I'm to blame for all of it.
Yeah. And the accountant is saying, I never take control of the funds. I just use this app to process it. The accountant is saying, what's my responsibility? I just processed it using Patriot, this app. And they were, they're like, hey, I don't have any control of the funds. What's my responsibility? And so initially there was a lot of confusion, a lot of concern by the client, by the accountant, by Patriot, I'm sure. I heard something that Ripple was going to fund the payroll with their own funds in the event that people weren't getting the paycheck. Because think about the ripple effect then, that all of a sudden now these employees, if their paychecks aren't there, then they have automatic payments coming out. It was a disaster. And then also, even today, payments that could have been sent, like you and I were talking, Bill and Melio and other payment processing apps, A payment could have been sent on Thursday or Friday. It could have been scheduled to be sent, and it could be caught up in this mess because a lot of these banks are out of Silicon Valley and use SVB as a bank. And the payment may not be going through, and you may not know about it for 2 or 3 days later, business days. And so there's a lot of ripple effects like you have out on there that you may not know about for days. And so it really was concerning. And one of the things that they mentioned on that cloud accounting podcast, the fact that a lot of us and our clients don't even have access to our bank account numbers anymore. We just assume we're going to be able to log in. And if you pull up your bank statement, it's all X'd out except the last four numbers. And so that's something is, making sure that the client at least has access to actual bank account numbers, because a lot of times we don't have access to those anywhere. And if the website's down and you can't log in and get access, we may not even have access to an actual bank account number. And I get to thinking about that. I don't have access to my bank account numbers, and they're not on your bank statement because they're all X'd out. We just assume we're always going to be able to log in and get access to that. And so, do listen to that cloud accounting podcast. They had great tips, thinking about, some of these larger clients, they have in excess of $250,000 in that bank. So they had exposure over and above the FDIC limit. So there's just a whole lot of things that, a lot of us may not have considered, exposure and risk, and it just raises a lot of ripple effects like is there that a lot of people hadn't considered.
And because all of these this ecosystem, right, is basically, maybe had a connection to the bank or had some API rails or something, and what they end up doing is having their own communications, right? So David and Blake were nice enough to create this bank collapse app.info website, which if I click on it, well, of course there's a way to listen to the Cloud Accounting podcast right there, but it has this nice list of apps that that had some kind of exposure. You can go in here and you can look at, where did this come from, right? Where did this exposure source? Always consider the source when looking at the news, right? And then they provide links, to that, or you can see if there is like an email, they'll take screenshots of the email so that you can see it. So this is a nice. I really appreciate that from David doing this, is putting something all in one place so quickly, so that it's a nice place for you to get your information in one place that's a little bit vetted, right? It's not just like, even if it's from an employee, right? They'll even say, unofficial communication, like an employee said this or something like that. So, everything has a grain of salt level to it, to be able to, kind of put your own, take on what this information means. I don't know if I think there is a way to search, right? So if you want to, the what is your exposure, to this, you can look up all the apps that you happen to be, using in your practice, and see if there is a connection to the bank. All right, so moving on to some of the other things, because we're coming up on the top of the hour. We're going to actually get some of these posts in the Facebook group. This is nice and short, and this is in the "What took you so long" department. Client disconnection, finally, right? So you've parted ways with a client, and you're no longer needing access to their books, and they're just dragging their feet, deleting you from the accountant section. You can finally remove them from your client list, so you don't see them anymore. Maybe things ended up poorly, right? And you don't want to be reminded of that connection. You can disconnect it. You just, on the client list itself, you click the drop down there, and there's a delete permanently And what that actually does is remove them from the client list. The reason that this took so long is that the client list in QBOA and the client list in your books were connected, right? Because this, you had a client on your client list, they were a customer in your customer list inside your books. If you deleted them permanently from your client list, there is a potential that you would inactivate or delete them permanently on your books, which, is a no-no, right? I mean, you do not want to delete a customer, especially if you had, invoices and transactions that you wanted to post to them. This does not do that, right? It does not delete anything inside the yearbooks customer list, and that's what they were, trying to sort through. If you are the primary admin or the master admin, you need to transfer that to them first. It will give you a message if you try to do that. So that is that's kind of all that is about that. This is a hooray thing for a lot of people, just having a bunch of clients on their client list that they're no longer connected to, and they're not. They have other things to do other than delete you as the as the invited accountant. So now you can do that. All right. So we had Mary Greaves. She posted that she was doing some cleanup work with, and she was using the app Sassant Deleter. And she was trying to delete transactions. The app allows you to bulk delete transactions out of QuickBooks, but these were duplicate expenses, and they were brought in from the bank feed. So any app, that's the rule of the API, right? Like if there is a bank feed connection, chances are it's probably been reconciled. If there is a bank feed connection to that particular transaction, the transaction itself will not be able to be deleted until that is severed, right? So the challenge that Mary had is that she disconnected the bank feed. So she didn't have access to be able to bulk undo these transactions. So unfortunately, that was something that she had to do manually inside of the QBO, because the bank feed connection was disconnected, and you were unable to undo. That's one of the things that you can do, is if you have it still connected and you want to batch undo those transactions and remove that connection so that you can ultimately delete the transactions. You can do that in bulk, at least up to 300 at a time, to bring those transactions back into the for review, where they're not actually have that connection into the register anymore. And then that would allow you to be able to undo or delete the transaction. So kind of going along with that, there was another post with a closing date. So she was creating a closing date pretty regularly and putting a password on it. And I love Michelle's recommended closing date password of $500.
You got to up that these days. Inflation, $1,000.
Because that's the cost that it will take to fix whatever it is that they're doing. But in her particular situation was just estimates, and I didn't even realize that making an edit to a non-posting transaction that was dated prior to the closing date would stop that from happening. So this was a come on, man. Because it's a non-posting transaction. Why can't you edit that transaction? Desktop allows for that, right? Points for desktop. But any edits couldn't change. She ended up ultimately finding her own workaround, is that now she's future dating estimates, so that they don't fall behind the closing date. She had her reasons, to not do, not give the customer the closing date password because of sales tax. You don't want your customer, this is a boundary, a guardrail, saving them from themselves situation with regards to sales tax. But this was definitely a thing that was I didn't even know about. So this is a good learning experience. But definitely, if we all, how many people? We have 150 people. If we all went to feedback and put this in, it's like allow non-posting transactions to be edited, well, then we would save Natalie a host of problems. All right.
Okay, Dan, before you go on, can I ask you a question? Back on removing the client. When we remove the client, do they get an email when we delete them? We get one if they delete us. Did they get an email when we delete them?
I haven't seen the email. I did it yesterday. I should reach out to the person that I deleted. He's actually a friend, so he would actually answer me. But I don't know. To be quite honest, that would be a good follow up just to see if they get an email. I saw some other people. What about team members?
Right.
That's not what we're dealing with here today. You still have to. You can only make them inactive as team users, and users are. Part of the challenge there is what happens in the audit log. If you actually were able to delete users, of course, if this was years ago, there's that, right? You don't necessarily need to go back that far. But it's typically that's the holdup with a lot of these deleting users type of thing, is what does it look like then in the audit log, and if you ever needed to review that. So we had this post about factoring, and it seemed like I saw a lot of this all at once, right? So there was there's factoring, there's retainers and retainage. And some of them occupy the same lane, but we just wanted to kind of unpack what that was. There's a nice article from Intuit about factoring, invoice factoring, but basically that is a third party buying the open invoices at a discount. And there's some nice resources there about how to manage and how to account for that. Now retainage is more in the construction field, where a third party is kind of withholding a percentage of the invoice until it's paid for in full, and then they release that percentage minus their fees. Where factoring is, they're just buying the open invoices at a discount. But all of this is not to be confused with a retainer, which is an upfront deposit prior to work being done. And then there's something within factoring as far as like invoice financing. Where it's actually a short-term loan for invoices, for basically against your open invoices. And there's a new feature, a newish feature inside of QuickBooks. Some of them, some companies don't even have it yet, but it's get paid up front, where you can use your QuickBooks payments and get that kind of loan against the open invoice, get it funded first. And then as long as it gets paid back within 30 days, you avoid the fees. But there's other, pre-funding apps out there as well that will do invoice financing, which has nothing to do with factoring, retainage, or retainers. But take a look at that. And then kind of coming in for a landing here, we always have a monthly question about unapplied cash payments, right? So this is something that is only in QuickBooks Online and only on a cash basis. The situation typically only happens in two cases. Legitimately, there is a payment, customer payment that is unapplied, or what happens a lot of times is that payments are recorded inside of QuickBooks, and that date is prior to the invoice. So when you're looking at a cash basis profit and loss, the profit and loss sees the payment first and then has to recognize an income. And then when it actually gets to the date of the invoice, then it goes through unapplied cash payment and then into the real revenue accounts that are on the invoice. So this is often a challenge, right? Because especially, kind of going back to the last thing, if you have a retainer or an upfront deposit and they've recorded it as a payment and they're on a cash basis, it's all, a lot of perfect storm. Stars have to align in order for this to happen. But they recorded a payment ahead of the invoice as an upfront deposit, and that's the easiest way to handle that. You're going to see this in the profit and loss because the payment is dated prior to the invoice. There's other ways to handle upfront retainers and deposits, so that doesn't happen. But this is typically, the situation that will cause that, and reversing the date range or actually correcting the transaction flow so that you can receive the upfront retainer ahead of time in a different way so that it doesn't actually post against accounts receivable. Then that will actually work. There's a blog article that I wrote about it, so you can always review that there. So went a little bit over, but I did want to throw out the last, our one and only poll question. Did you learn something new today? There's a lot of things to unpack there. Anything that I missed, Michelle, that you saw in the chats and questions going through?
I think you did a great job. I think you did a great job going through all of it. A lot of new stuff out there. Mary said there's one client in her list that's never been a client of hers. She doesn't understand how it got there and she wants it gone. So I would go in there and try to delete it. Somebody did say they don't see the ability to delete the client yet. Are they rolling that out? Is that something that they're rolling out? So maybe somebody just hasn't gotten it yet? Or do they need to clear the cache keys or try incognito?
I saw it when I went to my client list. Let me just quickly pop up here. I'll sign in. Just my dummy account. I saw it for some, and I didn't see it for others. Right. So, and I didn't know. I didn't understand. Yeah, like this guy here. I can't. Right. So it's got now. What probably? Oh, his QBO is a cancel. Right. So that might be the challenge. So they don't have an active subscription. That makes sense.
So you can't get rid of them.
Yeah, you can't delete them if they are not active. Like this one here. If I get over there I have the delete permanently option. He's an active customer. These are canceled.
So they have to have an active subscription to get rid of them. Well, that's kind of.
Well, no. This is interesting. This one there's a cancel company. Okay, so there goes my theory.
Yeah, because I want to get rid of ones that are canceled too.
Yeah, I mean you can always make them inactive, right? And that's going to hide them off of a list. But of course, you still have a connection, and if there is an active subscription, you could potentially be receiving emails. And those types of things. Another thing would be if you are the primary admin, you have to transfer that to the customer first before deleting that. So that may also be a factor as well. So we did go over a little bit. So I appreciate everyone who did kind of stick around that extra time, even during busy tax season. So we appreciate you joining us here today. Any closing thoughts for you, Michelle?
Nope. Just thanks, Dan, for everything. Thank you all for being here. We'll see you in a couple of weeks, except for Dan, who will be in the warm climes of somewhere fun. I don't know if you want to mention this, but thank you all for being here.
Well, I'll let you know if I lose my luggage.
Let's hope not.
All right. Have a great day. We'll see you next time on the QB Power Hour.
Thanks, everybody.
We hope you enjoyed listening to the QB Power Hour podcast. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them in our Facebook group. You can find those resources and much more at qbpowerhour.com.